Welcome to Athletes and Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct, where we've created a platform to help athletes and other alumni network and connect with each other and tap into various resources and finance and health and careers. But more importantly, this show is all about athletes transition out of sport. It's such a major issue today between mental health, financial literacy, and we want to make an impact. So we interview former college and professional athletes, and we talk about their journey in transition out of sport, ultimately into successful business leadership and entrepreneurship. So excited today to have Karl Blum on. How you doing, Karl?
Very good. Very good. Happy to be here.
We're happy to have you too. So Karl was a baseball player. He was a pitcher at Duke and then at Rutgers. And then when he transitioned out, very fortunate, he got an internship and ultimately worked his way up. He's now one of the principals at JDS Sports. So Karl, let's talk about growing up playing sports. How did that shape you leading up into college?
Sports was everything for me. I think driven a lot by my dad. My dad has weird stories actually where he couldn't play high school sports that he wanted to because he went to high school 30 minutes away. You're a Jersey guy. So he's from Essex County and went to Seton Hall Prep, which is like a 30-minute ride. And this is just like so foreign to me, but he actually had to either find somebody an older person that did the commute home and he could hop in the car with them, or he would hitchhike home. So if there wasn't a person on the sports team that could take him back to Roseland in Essex County all the way from Seton Hall Prep, he couldn't play it. So he didn't get to play high school baseball. He didn't get to play high school basketball. But those were two of his favorite things. And I think that really showed up when I was a kid. Our relationship was definitely entirely fun and entirely around sports all the time.
That's great. And so growing up, did you dream about being a professional athlete? And obviously, if so, was it baseball?
Yeah, I was taught to dream big, and luckily was part of a family that helped me support those aspirations. But yeah, no doubt, like every other kid, I grew up a Mets fan or a Nets fan, picturing myself in front of all those people. And I think, if you ever read the book Outliers, they talk about how like early success just kind of snowballs. It's the hockey case study where kids that were older were showing up in the NHL a lot more because they were just bigger when they were little. People supported them because they showed early success. I think there was a little bit of that going on for me. I was lucky to be an overgrown little kid who thought that was going to just be as easy as it is for the rest of my life. So yeah, I definitely pictured myself in the show a lot.
And so who was your favorite player on the Mets?
That's a good question. I loved Pedro Martinez. He was just like, so confident and going at his own pace and I love guys who you hate when they're in the other dugout, but love when they're in your dugout, and I think Pedro kind of epitomizes that.
For sure. Modern day, we got Jesse Winker.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Mets fans hated him, but now he's a Met. They love him. So
no doubt.
So let's talk about when you ultimately. So now when you go off to college and you started out at Duke, were there classes or a move for education to help athletes ultimately when they transition out of sport, and not just like a one-day class, but were there classes or workshops?
There was definitely a very hands-on athletic department with a holistic approach to athlete life. I think at the time I probably wasn't seeking out all of the resources that were available to me, so I can't really speak to the entire suite of what was possible. But I know that there was like endless support from the Duke athletic department. And I think that for this conversation, I think that's a point right there where I think that's a point right there where a lot of athletes don't start seeking out those resources until problems start arising.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of times it's like nose to the grindstone and they just, they don't know. They don't think about it. And ultimately, like I had one podcast, I talked to this guy. He's like, man, I just really wish that I would have had a mandatory, like a 6-week workshop or some type of class that we can do that. I think it's so important with the transition out of sport, just the teaching of it. And I think a lot of these athletes struggle. And there's a guy that said, he wishes he had like a 6-week workshop or a class just to help them once he was done, playing sports. And I think a lot of people don't get that. And we've as a company, we've talked about that too with our resource partners coming into like an athletic department and having curriculum that not only for the current athletes, but also for the alumni athletes as well. Because obviously, once they're struggling, even when they're out of school, it'd be great if they can kind of tap back in their alma mater and get that help.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that just the awareness and acknowledgement is so powerful. Sports end, it's like ripping off a band-aid. It's just like cut, dry, done. That moment it doesn't feel real, and you're going to go through probably years of figuring out what that means to you. But I don't know if other athletes feel this way. I sure do. I didn't really think about it until I got to that point. It was all gravy train. I'm living with a purpose. I'm chasing my dream. I'm expecting good things to happen. I'm expecting to play for a long time. And until it really started winding down, it was like, whoa, this is real now. And yeah, I think it would have been huge for me to have been a little bit more forward thinking while I was spending my time on campus.
Yeah, I think a lot of the big problem, a lot is just the kind of loss of identity. I mean, you're like, hey, I'm Carl, the baseball player. I was a runner. I'm Rob, the runner. It could be Billy, the football player, Susie, the swimmer, but they identify it as the sport, not the person, realizing that, yeah, you might still have another 30, 40, 50 years of being in the work world, of being active out there. And you've got a lot to offer, especially as an athlete.
No doubt. Yeah. I mean, at JDS Sports, we invest in sports related companies, but we also invest in a lot of sports related people. That's what athletes need to hear and know, is that they're valued even after they can't throw a ball really hard and get paid for it, or shoot a ball, whatever it is. You kind of pin your self-worth to your performance on the field, and then it goes away. But, I would want to tell athletes, that's not all that you're doing while you're in the dugout or you're on the bench. Like, you're learning a lot of things. And the people that you're about to go interview with, or people you're about to go work with, they really value that type of person when they go in the trenches too. Because like, we're all on some track, we're all on some war game, whatever it is, battle, and we want good people next to us. And there's a built-in arena that athletes are going through day in and day out, where they're honing those organizational skills and personal soft skills.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of that, you're right. We talk about all the time about just businesses wanting to hire athletes. You're right, because they always talk about the DNA, the skill set, the leadership, the team, the preparation, just everything that goes into being an athlete. So I'm glad that you brought that up. And just looking at it from two perspectives, as a potential employer wanting to hire, as well as looking at it from a standpoint of an investor and wanting to invest in that. So that's great to know. So let's talk about networking, connecting, importance of that. That's kind of how we met. Talk about, especially while you're still playing.
Yeah, I mean, use it to your advantage. The fact that you play a sport and people think sports are cool. It's true though that that's the way the world works, where you want to work with people that you've kind of vetted out on a social level, right? And if you're firing out LinkedIn applications, there's probably a math number where something will come back. The data will tell you, like, that's not how people get hired. People get hired by doing something like we're doing right now, getting to know each other, and then building a connection, and knowing that, okay, I have a high confidence level that we're going to work well together. Um, so yeah, I mean, that was huge for me, having Duke and baseball on who Karl Blum is. When I reached out to people and said, hey, I'd love to talk about this opening or this opportunity, it's a cool thing, and I'm proud of it. A person that's in a position of power that can help elevate lives is getting a lot of inbound requests to spend that personal time. Be confident and use that to your advantage, and start sooner than later, because it might not be 2 weeks, it might not be a month, it might be 6 months or a year until you find something that is worthwhile and meaningful to you. So having that expectation, it's relentless. It's always on. And starting sooner than later is the obvious way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I even talk about sometimes even starting back in high school. I mean, because you think about, you've got your teammates and their parents. You never know what their parents do, which is there's a lot of people that want to help, and I think that's the other key too. Is that I always talk about from a networking perspective, is that kind of go with that pay it forward helping attitude. So not going expecting something, and you never know when something's going to happen. Like you brought up, it could be a year, it could be 5 years. You might help somebody. Like a lot of times we'll talk about, oh, well, how can I help that person? I'm 21 and that person's super successful. Maybe you're going to help their kid. You just never know how it's going to work. And so we definitely encourage the whole networking. One thing that, I want to talk about that with you is what we found is a lot of athletes seems to be kind of siloed, and more so I think in football and baseball, maybe basketball too, where kind of staying together, especially as you get to that higher level when you're talking about professional athletes, that they kind of stick within their sport. Talk about your thoughts on that as far as being, more cross networking across all sports.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there's anything about who I am that's really helped my career, I think it's curiosity. I want to hear what it was like in that locker room where there wasn't 30 guys, there were 100 in the football locker room. How did that dynamic work? It's kind of similar where we're going through this similar representing the brand, being a part of the athletic department, but there's a different dynamic there. And there's something really admirable about the gridiron and the way that those dudes compete and put their bodies on the line. So I don't know, that's kind of the approach I like to take, where we have some common ground, but then the differences between humans is kind of what's interesting. I don't know. I value anybody that does anything challenging. It doesn't have to be baseball, football, or a sport even. But if you were on a team and you were doing something, that's cool to me. I want to hear about it. And I think a lot of people, I think a lot of people think that way.
Oh, for sure. And that's probably, that's what makes you successful. Yeah, having that curiosity, being open to listen to different things. And I think what happens, I talk about this, bring this up pretty much by every podcast, but I do a monthly networking event for my podcast guests. And it's cool because you have, I've had NFL, Major League Baseball players, Olympic swimmers, snowboarders, MMA fighters, soccer players, wrestler, handball. Like all the gamut of different sports. But the bottom line is, that DNA and in a sense the skill set is very similar. Most of us started playing sports when we were really young, and you have a team, you go through this whole thing. So now when you're done, why not tap in and just network across the different sports? And so what happens is I might have like 10 or 12 people on, and they all just kind of roll up their sleeves like, okay, what can we do to help each other with our businesses? And they've got that affinity relationship as an athlete, just like you might have an affinity relationship for somebody at Duke or Rutgers.
Totally. And the other thing I'd say, especially for like the younger people, I'm pretty young, but something that my college baseball coach harped on us was the same way I can get better at pitching by practicing, I can get better at other things that aren't so obvious to a young kid, such as my mental game, right? Like it doesn't, your brain doesn't look like a pitching motion, but the same way practice makes your throw better, practice makes your brain better. And practice makes networking better. It might be intimidating to put yourself out there and go to that event where there's going to be overwhelming social stimulation or whatever it might be. But the same way that you got in the gym and got your body better, you can go get your mind better. And, that goes for live events. That goes for getting on calls with people you don't know and putting yourself out there on the Zoom. That can be weird and uncomfortable and scary. I get that. But you get better at it, and when you're interviewing, it's like interviewing. Interviewing is a skill. And the more you do it, you might not get those first 6 ones, but you'll be better at the 7th kind of thing. And I think that's something more younger kids need to embrace.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is just even look at it as a game. It's another game for you.
Yeah.
Make it fun. Challenge yourself to meet people, and how can what can you do to help them? What they might be able to do to help you. I always talk about the Kevin Bacon was like 6 degrees of separation. For me, I like to do 1 degree of separation. Like I like to challenge myself that when I go in, I'm talking to somebody, I'm going to find somebody or something that's like just right that puts us right there together. And I think that's really important. It's kind of cool when you do it that way. Let's talk about alumni engagement. Obviously, at Alumni Direct, that's important to us. Talk about, and especially now because things have changed, and you just being newer out of school. What was it like for alumni engagement at Duke? Were they bringing back athletes, and not just for like the golf tournaments, but bringing them back to work with the current athletes, maybe even across all sports?
I've been a victim, I think, of the silo that you're talking about. I feel so engaged and really a part of the Duke baseball family. We go back every year for a banquet together. They put on events for us, and it makes me emotional to think about my time there and the bond that I have with everybody in that room instantly. I think you're right. I think it is a bit siloed in the sense that it's not department wide. And even on my time on campus, I feel like I could have done a better job of being a full member of the athletic department and the university. Um,
And I think it's, some schools do encourage it. I mean, I was talking to somebody, they were just telling me how the mentors come back and they do work across sports. So for like, I always bring up an example. I was on a call with the athletic department for my school, and I was on with one of my friends. He's a Hall of Fame player from the school and played 10 years in the NFL. And we just kind of said to them, like, look, we want to help. And the guy's like, why aren't you tapping into me? I want to help. I mean, Hall of Famer, NFL guy, all those years, like, use me. I want to come back and mentor and all that. And it's a two-way street. I think schools want to do it more and more. They're trying to, and obviously the athletes need to want to come back too. But I think it's just, I think people would do it. You have to get these people communicate together to do it. And then like that one school, because they were doing cross sports, I think that's kind of cool too, that the football player might be coming back, but at this point he might be CEO of a company, and the fact that he played football, like he knows that he wants an athlete coming in, like whether it was a football player, baseball, basketball, soccer, whatever the sport was, they don't care. They want to. So it's kind of that mentality.
yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Yeah. So I always have, and I don't know if you got a chance to listen or watch any episodes. So if you haven't, then it'll be like surprise questions. Is always kind of cool. My two questions. So first question: if you can go back in time, kind of like Back to the Future, if you go back in time and you could give advice, 10 words or less, to freshman Karl at Duke, what would you say?
Oh, there would be a lot. 10 words or less. Oh man, don't do pre-med would be one. Let me think. Advice to freshman Karl at Duke. I think it would come down to think about your priorities. You only have so much bandwidth. I think that's important. Where somebody said to me at some point in time, where you're basically, there's social life, there's academics, and there's school, there's family, there's all these things that matter to a person. And anytime you go in one direction, you're getting further away from another direction. I really value being a well-rounded person that can do a lot of things, but a human is only capable of so much. And if you're not constantly in tune with your priorities, especially when stakes get high and demands are high, like being a college athlete, it can get tricky.
All right, now let's fast forward to senior Karl.
Senior Karl, I would tell him to throw more sliders, probably. Let me see.
That would have got you to the show, huh?
Yeah, I would tell, this worked out for me actually, so I don't know if it's exactly what I would say, but I'd say to try and recreate the bonds that I was able to build at Duke in whatever way that is on new teams, new companies, new partners in whatever I'm doing. Look for those good people that you trust and want in your side. That's where you move mountains.
Yeah, no, that's great. So let's talk a little bit about NIL, name, image, likeness, and since you were in that era, or just on the beginning or before it started, maybe. But give me your thoughts, positive and negative, of that the whole landscape. And it doesn't have to be just necessarily tied into the athletes making all the millions of dollars, or the portals. It could be just in general the opportunities for athletes.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't give pitching lessons and advertise that I was a Duke baseball player. I don't know who that would have harmed. So I would start by saying it is a blessing that these college athletes have the ability to be them full selves and take advantage of the full opportunity that being a college athlete is, even if it's small, even if it's a few $1,000 over the summer. I think that's necessary. And then I'm on board with the fact that these kids are making a lot of money for a lot of other people. They should be compensated appropriately. My worries are we're giving a lot of power to young kids, and we're throwing crazy incentives in front of them. And I think a lot of kids are making not the best decisions. And there needs to be guidelines in place that make the coaches' lives easier when it comes to recruiting and trying to build a cohesive unit for 4 years. You got kids for 4 years, and I'm so blessed that I stuck it out at Duke for 4 years. And learned those hard lessons, went through adversity, and made best friends for life. But now the way that the transfer portal combining with NIL is creating this incentive system where, you can be a free agent every year and hop around. I couldn't do that after my freshman year, even though I was struggling in school and I hurt my arm and I missed home and I wanted to go anywhere else. I wanted to go back to Rutgers probably. I couldn't do that. Otherwise, I would have had to sit out a year of baseball, and I wasn't going to do that. So I was kind of kept in that place and forced to face my challenges head on. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. So that's the most concerning part for me, where, it's good that we're giving autonomy to the athletes, but there needs to be some logic to it. And I think there's a lot of people out there working on solutions that take the athlete into account, because the athlete is an integral part of this equation, and their interest needs to be accounted for when the new rules are written, and is taking the schools and the coaches and all the other stakeholders into account, so that it's not as chaotic as it is today, because college sports is a place to make lives. And I think, we need to get back to that, and we will soon. We will soon.
Yeah, I think you bring out, I think the biggest, I guess, the negative is is maybe the lack of education. And I think people are getting better about it now, because it's so important. Like, hey, guess what? You need to maybe set up an LLC. You're going to have to pay taxes, how to effectively market yourself. But then the benefits of it, because you're seeing a lot of these other sports getting involved. I mean, it could be swimming and soccer and track, runners that are getting the opportunity to do these NIL deals. And I think it's building that skill set of being an entrepreneur and be able to do all those things.
100%. It's amazing. I see actually the women are crushing the NIL game, because they are better than the men at being their best brand ambassador, being on social media, and they're crushing it. And I think it's fascinating to see these young kids who are stars on and off the field. And that's a good thing. And it's something that's going to, we're going to start to see these Livy Dunn types sprouting and starting decades long careers, all from their ability to properly market themselves while they're on campus. Yeah.
100%. I totally agree on that one. So let's talk about transition out of sports. So, for you, I think it seems like you had a pretty good feel for it and what you wanted to do, and you got right out into the work world. Very fortunate. But let's talk about it. I'm sure, some of your teammates and a lot of athletes do struggle. Maybe give some advice to athletes that once their time is up, or even as it might be coming up, or just that preparation process.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it all gets back to purpose. When you're an athlete, you are usually happy because you wake up every morning and you know what to do. You know what your responsibilities are, and you know that the goal you're chasing is meaningful. In short, you have a sense of purpose about your life. And this is a society-wide thing. This is not just a sport athlete thing. It's people that have purpose are happier people. They get up with motivation and they feel responsibility, and there's meaning to their life. When your purpose disappears, you're going to have to find a new one. And I would say, don't overcomplicate it. There's chasing money, which is good. I think that, financial reward is awesome. And we're capitalists at JDS Sports, and we try and build good businesses. And that's very fun for us. It's measurable. And our athlete brains like that. But that'll only take you so far as well. Coach Pollard at Duke always used to say something to us when you're in your own head, you don't know what to do, you can't get anything right. Stop thinking about yourself so much and go try and help one of your teammates. Go make somebody else's problems your problem and focus on those, and things will probably clear up in your head. And I think that gets back to our, human need for connection, and there being inherent purpose in helping others. And it's something that has helped me in the darker days when I lost my purpose and was looking for new ones. It's something that at JDS Sports guides every single day that we do while investing for profit. Our purpose of building big companies, returning capital, and then using a portion of our returns for growing the game of basketball, providing opportunities to underserved populations. That stuff wakes us up in the morning, and it all comes back to the purpose of helping others. So finding things like that, I think, are going to be your rock when that big dream fades.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's just, and then the bottom line is, there's so many people out there that want to help. and take the help. I mean, it just you hear a lot of sad stories of just different things going on in athletes that some of the worst case scenarios you can imagine. But it's just be open to asking. People want to help, and for sure. So you kind of started touching on JDS Sports, but talk a little more about some of the great things that you're doing at JDS Sports.
Yeah, JDS Sports has been the best. I feel really fortunate to, like I shared, I've been there for 6 years, and we were talking before we hopped on where a lot of people, especially in my generation, 6 years and 4 different companies on their resume. But for me, I don't think too much about leaving because I feel really fortunate about the small team I work with and the people that they are. We invest in sports and entertainment startups. Slam Media is one of our owned and operated. We own that one majority. Kind of at the centerpiece of our portfolio. It's a basketball media company that's doing really well. Picked that up in 2017, and the ethos of JDS Sports was essentially to invest around Slam in sports, media, technology. We've made over 40 investments since I've been there. It's been a lot of fun. Investments have spanned from seed or really early stage stuff to more, growth capital investing. We've gone in a lot of different directions and met a lot of really cool people, and we've had success, which gets back to what I was talking about earlier in our purpose. And we actually have a philanthropic arm that's attached to JDS Sports called Play with Purpose, where I think the number is somewhere like $8 million of impact, where, we've supported, nonprofits using sports for good causes.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, they're doing a lot of great things there. And what advice would you give to, like an athleters in general, like a prospective entrepreneur, as they start a journey and look to build their idea, their dream, and ways that they can move it forward and get investment dollars and all that?
Yeah, there's a lot, man. It's really hard to build a company, and I didn't have an appreciation for this when I first started. You hear the statistics where 99+% of companies fail. And I was young and naive, and I'm like, we have good deal flow, we're well connected, we're intelligent, and our sample size is going to be a different number. And it is. It's a better number. But I'm seeing firsthand over the last 6 years these really capable, well connected, experienced, just brilliant people that run into bridges they can't cross, and ultimately the business winds down. So I think that's for somebody that's coming out of sports, has a good idea, and wants to devote their life to it. I think it's really important that that's the situation you're getting yourself into, and you're going into it with embrace, because that game will beat you down. And that's why we like investing in athletes, because they know what it's like to have purpose. They know what it's like to get up every day with motivation. They try and create a life that creates that again, and that can be their company. And they take those challenges head on. You can't go into that game half-hearted, or it'll just, you come out with scars and lessons, but it won't succeed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So this has been great. So talk about, how can people find you?
You can find me on social media. We also have our own JDS Sports social handles. You can go to jdssports.co. You can find us on Instagram, JDS Sports. We have a YouTube channel as well. I actually host a podcast where we interview founders around our portfolio or other businesses that we're partnering with or relevant to the work that we do. That's called Inside Moves, the name of the podcast show, and you can find our YouTube page at JDS Sports. But yeah, I'm on all socials, LinkedIn, Karl Blum. You can find me pretty easily.
Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out. You can see Karl's a pretty sharp guy. He's done well for himself at a young age, but and you can find us at alumnidirect.com, and the podcast Athletes Entrepreneurs Alumni Journey is on our YouTube channel, as well as across all the different podcast networks. I just encourage people, athletes, and just people in general to just watch and listen to this show. There's so much great advice that our guests like Karl have provided. Advice and solutions, and just know that there's people out there that care, and we really want to make an impact. I always say, like, at least on one person, but for sure, hopefully a lot more than that. But definitely follow us and watch the thing. So Karl, it was great. We really appreciate the time.
Yeah, really glad to be here, and think this is a necessary movement. Alumni Direct is something I wish I had discovered.
Well, thank you.